Hello, good evening. This is my week's response to the videos. I loved this week's theme so much. Was really interested in everything that happened and feel very connected. So basically, the question you're asking today is how are arts used to support transformation, connection, and celebration? So I'm going to connect it first to the videos I watched and then to myself. So in regard to Sandy, what I appreciated the most is that she was utilizing relevant topics of headlines, specifically from my city, over these landscapes, and it made me feel more connected to my political environment, admittedly with some mild shame. Since this current president, I have felt myself freeze with inaction. And so there was something about her artwork that made me realize that I'm still a key player in this world. And it helped me realize that I'm connected to my political climate, whether or not I'm speaking out about it. And so what I need to do is find a way to mobilize myself and my country. And so I felt like that her work both connected and transformed me into action, into figuring out how to do that. And so I appreciated both her layout, her thought process, and how it did connect the viewer. I also liked, because I respect Sandy, and she taught us this summer, and I really respect her collaborative way of communicating. And I felt like I found a million different lesson plans in her artwork with the headlines. Like I was like, I've been collecting, and I think I have told you this on my last lesson, that I've been collecting West Valley specific headlines for about a year. And so I have this idea of turning those West Valley headlines, like having them projected on the board and then having performance art in front of it, from my kids' point of view. So I thought I'd already been thinking about that, and then hearing and listening to Sandy really made me think, okay, that's relevant. So I felt like it really connected. In regard to the Silk Road and Yo-Yo Ma and the whole amazing ensemble of musicians, I just like sobbed through that documentary. So my mom is an instrumental musician, and I grew up around that world, so I loved hearing that. And I wrote down pages and pages of notes. The thing that interested me a lot, which I'm sure you're not surprised by, is the cultural weaving of the music itself, and how the musicians themselves were both excited and trepidatious of trying to combine all these things. And everyone's kind of like, what are you guys even doing? If you're watering it down, if you're combining it. And that's basically the story of my life as a teacher. I was trying to figure out these kids' culture, how to highlight it, and how to utilize where they came from and where they are now and how it all combines. And I realized watching the Silk Road video that it is messy and that the transformation of healing that music or the arts provide, and then they give us a voice to come into our communities, or to give our communities a magnifying glass, or to talk about the power of connection and humanity. Also, I found it moving that all of the musicians themselves were from different parts of the world. And this idea that we all have fears and doubts, and we have past trauma, and how the arts and creativity can really heal them. And I think that for me, I've seen that so many times in the classroom that I really believe that giving my students the power over their creativity in the classroom is the biggest gift I can give them, because then what happens is they tend to give it back to me. And it's like we talked in class that week. It's definitely that 2 cups thing. And it makes me so happy in that way. Okay, the lesson plan that I use, I actually taught it, but I'm an idiot. And I think I have a thing on the board that I took a picture of. So if I don't get extra credit, I don't really care, because the point was it went right along with what I was already teaching. And I went ahead and implemented it this last week, and it was preserving culture in the globalized world. And I love that lesson, and I showed a lot of Christina Pacho clips, and the kids were just mesmerized. And then we played around with performing arts using her music and doing chair duets and things like that. And then we filled out the different handouts from lesson 6. So maybe I can take a picture of those. But like I said, I don't care if I get extra credit. I just liked the resource of it. This class has been amazing. So I really liked that because I think you can gather so far that I think I have a theme of figuring out how this idea of culture fits into my classroom because it's always so changing. And the Silk Road Project really emphasized that for me. This idea of culture is either changing and growing or it's dying off. And how do we find a spot where it's resonating with us now and it's part of the ghosts of us and our forefathers or mothers, and then us presently, and then our children or whatever. So I found that really beautiful, both in the classroom and just personally as an artist, really. When I think about this idea of transformation, I fell in love with theater at a young age, and it was because I always liked it. But the big moment for me was when we went to go see my sister in Into the Woods. She was in the orchestra pit, and my parents were in the middle of this huge divorce. It was the late 80s, Utah Valley, very conservative. And my mom and I happened to show up the same time that my dad showed up. And she was like, no, you can't sit by him and you can't talk to him. Because there was all these rumors about, why he left and whatnot. And so there he was in this auditorium, and I'm watching this beautiful fairy tale unfold in front of me. And if you're familiar with Into the Woods, at the end of Act 1, everything ends happily. And then at the beginning of Act 2, everything falls apart. Everything. People die, there's adultery, just like lots of things happen. And then this moment where you have Cinderella and the baker and Little Red and Jack, and they're all sitting there after like all of this ruin has happened. And they sing this beautiful song called You Are Not Alone. And it says, people make mistakes, fathers, mothers. And I just remember sitting there thinking, it's going to be okay. The art form immediately went in my heart and it transformed me. It comforted me and it gave me courage. And that moment was so impactful that I tell my students that a lot about the why. Like, why am I here? Why is it performing arts? For me, it's the power of performance coupled with music or dance or visual art or performing art, all of it. But it's a power because it cleanses the real things in our heart. So when I transfer this to my teaching in relationship to both Sandy's work and the Silk Road Project, my goal then becomes to facilitate and participate in transformative arts experiences, right? By teaching curriculum that's culturally forward and centered, by giving my students a voice. It's a devised unit that I use, this Preserving Culture in a Globalized World, and the kids are creating devised pieces on what I wish the media knew about my Granger community is. And so we're talking about culture in our classroom, both a Granger culture, the West Valley, the community, all the way to a global culture and what that looks like as performers. So I'm finding that to be really beautiful as I'm trying to navigate. I was very comforted when I met you last time that you assured me that messy was okay, and that we're talking a lot and we're engaging in these conversations, and kids are affirming that they feel safe doing that in my class. So I don't know if it's right or wrong. I just know that the energy feels productive, that the kids feel like creators when we're in these classroom settings, talking and learning about these things, and that's what I care about. So I've really resonated with this week of art as the transformation and the connection, because I feel like once you're transformed, those that you're with, you're connected with, and then you're celebrating with. I feel like it all kind of vines together. So it was a beautiful week. Loved the material. I love how mindful you are with the material that you give us, and I'm thankful for everything I'm learning. So it was a beautiful week. Thank you.